All right, everyone. Welcome to the 5th Facilitation Masterclass of a series of monthly Facilitation Masterclasses that I am facilitating. So many facilitating words in there. This class is being recorded for those of you who want to revisit this, who are watching this live, and for those of people that signed up and may be watching this later. So just so you know, you are on film. But it's always good to see your beautiful faces because it gives me a sense of that interaction that I love from live trainings and live events. If you are just hopping on here, hop over to the chat box. We are going to be using this. This is their first practice in using the chat box on Zoom. And if you're calling in, you might not be able to access this, but just let me know where you're calling in from today. We have some international folks. It's always fun to see where people are coming in from. Part of building community is knowing who's in the room, right? And I know that there are some people on here, this is your first masterclass. Some people, maybe this is your 4th or 5th masterclass with me. But I just want to start by saying thank you for sharing your time with me today. I do not take it lightly, given that there's a million things that you can be doing with your time. My name is Marli Williams, for those of you who I have not yet gotten to meet. And I started this training, these facilitation master classes 5 months ago as a way for me to really serve people like you, people that lead live events, live trainings, live workshops, and that want to develop, increase, and up-level your skills as a facilitator. So that is my mission through these master classes, is to really give you everything that I got. At the end, I always talk about ways we can continue the conversation, so that I'm going to share that with you. And I really want this to be super engaging and super interactive, even though we're virtual. So before we dive into all of the content today, I have 3 community agreements that I would love to share with you. If you're returners, you know the community agreements, but for the new folks, we're just gonna welcome you into this facilitation community. I will type these into the chat box so that you can see these. This is part of effective facilitation, is just getting everyone on the same page. So our first community agreement is to be open. I know that some of you have been facilitating for 20 plus years, some of you are just facilitating, and some of you are in between, right? So have an open heart and open mind to learn whatever it is that you need to learn. And sometimes it's just that one reminder or that one golden nugget that you take with you that makes the biggest difference. So I invite you to show up with an open heart and open mind, getting what you need today. The second one is to be present. I know this is tough for people. We live in a world with these phones, with things, with all these distractions. So my invitation to you today is to show up fully and be as present as you possibly can be. The more present you are, the more that you're going to get out of it. And our third one is to be engaged. Like I said, we're going to be using this chat box. I'm going to be asking questions, because if we were in the same room, that's what would be happening. So everything that I do is an invitation to model that for you, to model the way to create interactive and engaging experiences, both virtually and live. And the more engaged you are when I ask those questions, the more fun it is, hopefully, for you, and the more fun it is for me. I think that the art and the beauty of facilitation is that I love just helping people like you tap into your own innate knowledge and wisdom, and then be able to translate that, transfer that, integrate that, and apply that to your trainings, your workshops, and events. So part of that engagement is part of how adults and how people learn in general, instead of me just hammering you with tons of information. The more interactive we can be, the better. So if you're on the phone, I think you can use the raise hand feature. And if you're in here, you can raise your hand. And we can just continue to stay engaged with each other throughout. So if you are down and I can see your face, I know I can't see everyone's beautiful face, give me a thumbs up that you are in agreement with that. Yes, Maggie, thank you for being here. Amy Clymer, I see you. Marianne, Kelly, Manka, Nedra, Ryan, thank you all so much for being here. And yeah, so those are our community agreements. Our first, well, kind of our second question, because we had an unofficial start question asking people where people are coming in from. So if you haven't set or put in the chat where you're calling in from, let me know. And our first official question is, what inspired you to be here today? As a facilitator, this is like my favorite question. Like, it really gets people reconnected to like, why are you choosing to take an hour of your time today? And I can say that in a way that's specific to this class today is, why is building a strong sense of community important to you, important to your people, important to your live events? Why does this topic of community matter? And so you can either type in the chat box, or I'd love to hear live from a couple people. If you're on the phone, you can use the raise hand and I'll call on you, or you can just unmute yourself and share. Either answering the question, what inspired you to be here today, or why is community important? Maggie, you're up.
Because you, to me, epitomize, it's about you, Marli, because I see how you create community, and I think I want some of that. I want to know how to do that more better. Like, I just did my first webinar today. That's what's up with that. Boom. And it's like, and having you on the heels of that, I want to be able to create community around that thing. So that people feel connected in the same way that I feel connected around your thing. So whatever you have to offer in that direction, I'm up for hearing it.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you for being here, Maggie, and congrats on your webinar. It's amazing. Yeah. So it looks like Nedra says, I love leading and educating people and always looking for ways to improve and stretch myself. Amy says, inspired to be here because of me. Thank you. And Amy teaches people to be creative. That is her jam in the world. And community within teams helps increase that creativity. Always thinking of ways to tweak what I do. Just excited to learn. Thank you for being here, Amy. You're an amazing facilitator. And I'm honored that you are here in this room. Kelly says, I don't want to just speak words to teach. I want to teach meaningful, impactful content, and I want people to feel safe when sharing. Huge, right? Our last masterclass, we talked about creating a strong sense of welcoming and like belong. It was about creating community agreements, which is part of that. And we've talked a lot before about safe space versus brave space, and really creating experiences where people are will share and will get real and get deep. And part of that is feeling like they belong and they are a part of a community and a tribe that won't let them down, or that won't leave them if they are real and vulnerable and authentic. And so how do we create those really deep connections rather than like surface level connections? And I'm curious about, I've been talking to Sonia about that, the difference between, going to a networking event and walking away with like 20 business cards and you don't remember anyone's name, versus going to an event where you feel like you just made 5 new best friends that you're going to stay in touch with for the rest of your life. I'm just going to share a couple more here. So Monica says, for my minority, it means connection and safe space, Me Too moments, and not feeling so different, right? I think that this is such a huge part that I see a lot of facilitators miss out on, especially content experts or thought leaders, where it's like, well, we have to get through all of this information or content. And yet such a big part of live events and trainings and workshops is who's in the room. And I think that that's such a missed opportunity for a lot of folks. And that's really what we're going to get to explore today. Jennifer Marshall here with Marianne. I feel like we have a huge community already at our organization. And a lot of the training that I'm doing is inviting new people into that community. And I get super anxious in public speaking, which can sometimes make it hard to really invite people in. Yeah, so raise your hand if you can relate to like being anxious before giving a presentation, leading a workshop, doing an event, right? And I think that facilitation really allows you to let the audience or the community speak for itself. And as a facilitator, a big part of that is like, again, is that you're the space holder. You're the one to create the space and to hold the space and to be the guide, and not necessarily to be in the front of the room for 3 hours delivering information, you know. Sonia says, I'm inspired to be here because without real connection, workshops are, in my opinion, significantly less impactful. Boom. So that is a question that you can use to create connection, to create community at any of your events, at any of your trainings. Why are you here? What inspired you to be here? I think it's just such an important question, and just getting people grounded, getting people connected to themselves and to other people, and creating, like Monka said, those Me Too moments. You know, realizing that one of my beliefs is, and this is kind of one of the key pillars of this pillar. I'm like, there's a lot of pillars. So just to back up for a second, for those of you who this is your first masterclass, the idea of creating a strong sense of community is the second pillar in the 5 pillars of transformational facilitation. And so by you being here, I'll make sure that you have access to those previous master classes for you to visit along the way. All of these are always recorded for you to access at any point in the future. So I just wanted to name that this is really the second pillar. And part of this, like the foundation of this particular pillar, is that I believe that everyone wants something to believe in and to belong to. And so how do you create experiences where people say, like, this was meant for me, like, and these are my people? And for some people, like, think about, and I'm going to invite you to think about, what are places or experiences? This is our second question for interaction here. Lots of questions today. What are places and spaces that have inspired you, where you feel a strong sense of community? I invite you in the chat box, name the event, name the workshops, name the experiences where you have felt the strongest sense of community or connection, or that sense of like, I have something to believe in and to belong to. So in the chat box, what are the places, spaces, and experiences where you have felt the strongest sense of community and belonging? So I'd love to hear from you. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna check my notes to make sure. I have a lot that I want to cover, so I want to make sure I'm going kind of in the right order a little bit. I love that. Okay, so people are responding. This is great. BAWAR, advocate training, and take back the night. Awesome. Hero Club. So as you're thinking about these, this is the secondary question, and keep putting these in here. What was it about that experience that made you feel connected? What was it about those experiences where you did feel the most connected to the people that were in the room? Like, what happened? What was that experience like? Just to reconnect with that feeling of like, well, so much that I learned from facilitation is like what I've seen work really well. You know, what are other people doing where I have felt super connected to the people, to the place, to that experience? That's the question I have when it comes to other people and sharing and working towards solving problems. There was space to talk to others. Yeah. Usually experiences where me and other people are sharing. And then Sonia says WDS, how the heck do they establish such a feeling of community before you even get to the event? It's a huge part of it. Safety that created allowed people to be vulnerable. She owns, what's HH in DC? I'm super curious what HH is, Maggie. On an Outward Bound course, my mastermind group, business coaching program, I felt connected because 1, there was intention from myself and others to be connected with each other. And 2, we had shared values and experiences that helped us relate. Local women's groups, vagina memoirs at WW. Awesome. And so, I am going to, like, for those of you who are like, Marli, give me the tips on how to do this. I just want to get us all really connected and really grounded to, like, the moments where we have felt really connected and really reflecting on what was it about that. And like Amy said, I think, like, that intention, I asked at the beginning, like, what is your intention for being here? And a lot of the people that are coming to your live trainings or events, like, they, like, think about why you are creating your event, like, for what purpose, and is part of that intention to build and create community beyond just delivering content, right? And I'm imagining it is because you're in the room. So I think that, so feel free to keep adding in all of the, like, places and spaces where you have felt the most connected. And what was that about? Like, what was it about the facilitator? What was it about that experience that really helped you feel that strong sense of belonging? One of the things that I see often is that just because people are in the same room, it does not mean they're going to connect necessarily. And as a facilitator, you have to be willing to create moments and opportunities for connections to occur. 80% of people would consider themselves to be shy or introverted. I think most people interpret that as they don't want to connect. Guess what? If they're in a, like, live studio audience, if you will, like, if they've gotten on a plane, if they've left their home to go to your experience, they are craving connection. And just because they're in the room, like, I am a super extroverted person. And there are times when I walk into a space, networking the event with 50 or 100 people, and I have no idea what to do because there's no one facilitating the conversation. There's no one facilitating connection. And I think that a lot of people assume, like, oh, we gathered them here. They're here. They're obviously going to connect. But that's not necessarily the case. And I think that the thing that I see a lot of people undervalue how important it is to intentionally, artfully, and mindfully create opportunities for people to connect and engage with each other. And sometimes for me, it's been the most powerful thing that I get from going to in-person trainings, live workshops, or events is, like, it's not always the content, it's the relationships, it's the community, and it's the connection that gets to be created. And Sonia, I did say 80% of people would consider themselves to be shy or introverted. A lot more people would consider, and even more in the day and age of this little guy, where people feel I call it the illusion of connection, with having all of the millions of Facebook friends and likes and stuff, but people are so isolated and so lonely and so craving that connection. And it was so interesting. I wanted to share a couple stories with you just to, like, reinforce this even more, and then give you some tools and how to do this in your own communities, live trainings, workshops, and events. And so one story that I'll share with you is I had an opportunity to speak at an event in February, and there was like 20 speakers there. I was the closing keynote speaker. Out of the 20 speakers, there was maybe 1 or 2 other people who did anything relatively interactive. And people were sitting in this room for 2 days in rows listening to people give them information. And mine was the closing keynote, and it was the most interaction and engagement they had all weekend. And my friend who was there, she turned to me, she was like, it was like you gave water to thirsty people in the desert. Like, people were so hungry for this. And it blows my mind because, like, there was an event that I just went to recently here in Portland, and it was so funny. There was a guy, and he was having us, there's 1,000 people in the room, and he was like, okay, now I'm going to make you turn to a partner. Like, the way that he said it, it was like a bad thing. Or he was, as a facilitator, he was like already assuming that people wouldn't want to do that. So it's, again, as a facilitator, there's so many nuances. It's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And this is like one of my favorite like hot tips as a facilitator, is that everything is an invitation. And I love the word invite. So instead of like, I want you to turn to a neighbor, or you need to turn to a partner, or, I invite you to find someone next to you to connect with. I invite you. I invite you is so much more powerful. And he kind of like, there's a thing in facilitation called like framing, right? So you frame team building experiences, and you give them all of the information that they need. And I would call what he did a little bit of over-framing, meaning he was kind of trying, it almost seemed like he was uncomfortable having us connect. And so he was like, because of his discomfort, he was like, oh, now we're going to have you do this like awkward turn to a neighbor thing. And I was like, I want to turn to a neighbor. Thank goodness someone's asking me to freaking talk, because I've just been talked at for like the past 5 hours or whatever, right? And so I just think that knowing that the piece of the facilitation here is being willing to invite people to connect with each other. So I'm going to tell you how to actually do that now that I've shared some things with you. And I am open to your thoughts. And again, I didn't say this at the beginning. If you have questions along the way, I am happy to answer those in the chat box. So step number 1, because people like steps, I don't know. So I wanted to give you really tangible, specific things that you can do with your people that are, I believe, some of the best ways to create meaningful and authentic connection and a strong sense of community. And the first concept here is the power of a prompt. And this is, again, coming into these workshops that you're doing with the assumption that people want to connect. I just need to give them a reason to connect. I need to open that door. And there's a few different tools that I use in order to do that. And I wanted to show you them today. Some of you have seen these that have been to my live trainings and workshops and events. This is a box of Jenga, everybody. This is like one of my favorite tools on the planet. You can buy a thing of Jenga, I don't know, on Amazon for 10, 15 bucks. And they happen to come blank, but there's a lot of things that you can do with these puppies. So this is like, I call it question Jenga. And these all have different questions on them. What do you want to be when you grow up? What is the biggest need in our world? And you can use even like you can have a bunch of questions. You can have like, you can choose your own adventure question. Sometimes I have these just set up like to play Jenga as you play Jenga. Other times, as people are walking in the door, I just say like, hey, welcome. Here's where you sign in. I'm going to hand you one of these blocks. Go find someone else with one of these blocks and ask them the question that's on your block, and then they trade questions. I'm going to speak at a networking event in a couple weeks, and there's a lot of events that do this. Hot tip here. The event opens, the door opens at 5:30, and the event doesn't start until 6 o'clock. And I asked her, what are you going to be doing between 5:30 and 6? And they're like, I don't know. Again, just because people are in the room doesn't mean they're going to connect. And it's the whole point to be there is to network. And based on your people, based on ask questions that you think are meaningful to your audience. That's the nice thing about, and you can get Jenga, or you can just literally get blank note cards. You can do lots of things. But this section is the power of a prompt. So one is Jenga. There are other cards that I'm going to highlight from some of my very good friends. One of them happens to be in the house right now. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, Sonia, you noticed that. I was like, was I the only one that noticed that? Sonia was at the same event where the guy was like, this is awkward, turning to a neighbor. No, it's not. We want to connect. So this is a question deck made by Jan, who is in the house. I don't know if you want to like get off, show us your beautiful face. I mean, we can see the picture of your face, but, and he has these like beautiful, beautiful cards that he created. And there are different levels of prompts. There's brave ones, there are curious ones, and there are vulnerable ones. So it depends on like how deep you want to go. And yeah, and he has this great thing of like, he has the instructions for how to use these. Again, if you don't want to come up with your own, there's amazing humans that have done that. And these are super simple. And other ways that you can use these are you can have questions out on the table that people can draw. I love these cards so much. These are super, super great. I'm going to show you my other favorite one. My other favorite deck is called cardsforconnection.com. And I'll put these links. This one's askdeepquestions.com. I'm highlighting Jan. Boop, boop. And these are cards for connection. And these are really, really awesome. I feed my creativity by something wise my elders taught me was blank, right? Like these prompts, as like cheesy as some people may think they are, people love them because it gives them permission to connect in such an easy, simple way. You hand someone a card, they ask the question, they trade cards, they go meet with someone new. Boom. Super, super simple facilitation hack. I don't know if I like that word, but I just used it. And then there's another one that doesn't necessarily include any cards. And I liked that, I don't know, I haven't had a name for this before, but Jan named it and I love it. And Jan, feel free to jump in if you have any additional thoughts about this. But so we had the Jenga, we had the Ask Deep Questions, we had the cards for connection. And then the fourth one I call, or Jan has deemed, the Stranger Walk. The Stranger Walk is an amazing exercise to do in helping people realize, in kind of, how do I want to say this? You're like slowly building opportunities and ways for people to connect with each other. I wish that we were all in the same room so that we could do this together, because I was like, how do I explain the Stranger Walk? But I'm going to do my best to explain it. Jan is going to chat in the chat box if I'm messing this up, and or hop on here and fill in the blanks. But the Stranger Walk, imagine that we're all standing in the room, and I'm going to invite people to we're going to mingle around the room. We're going to walk around the room, but we're not going to make eye contact with each other. Like we're going to walk with our head down, like we're just like kind of on a mission, on our way to something very important. So we're not acknowledging anyone. We're just like going through the motions, maybe bumping into people because we're not actually paying attention. And then you slowly invite people to, slow down the pace of their walking and just start to notice like things that are around you, things that are in the room, other people. And then slowly starting to make eye contact with those people. Maybe giving a little head nod, or a little just eye contact, smirk, smile, and start to like just notice, make eye contact, and you're starting to engage and connect a little bit more with each other. Then you can kind of build on this from here. You can give, high fives, you can shake people's hands, and then you just like, if you have music playing during this time, you can stop the music and then give them a prompt. And again, the prompt can be anything based on your community and what are the questions that you think are the most valuable for them to ask or answer, right? So again, one of the questions I love is Jan says, when you're doing the smiling part, increase their smiles from like a 5 out of 10 up to a 10 out of 10. So like really get into it. Like, and part of this stranger walk thing is, as a facilitator, you have to be willing to like, people love this one, right? And you have to be willing to model like the 5 out of 10 versus the 10 out of 10 smile for them. It's so important to model a way. And then give people a prompt. Like have them like find a partner, give them a prompt, give them a certain amount of time. The key with like connection and community building is having a method to get your people back, especially if you have a big room, right? You might have a small group and that's easier. But so if your prompt is what inspired you to be here, you're each going to have 1 minute to share. And then 1 minute in, I'm going to raise my hand for you to switch, or I'm going to ding a bell, or I'm going to do something for you to switch. And then we'll do quiet coyotes, or we'll do something. Bells work really well. Just having some sort of callback, you know, for people that are older, like my age and older, sometimes I like to do the Vanilla Ice callback, where I go, ice, ice, baby, and they go, da-na-na-na-na-na. Or you can do like waterfall, and everyone will go, I don't know how to do a waterfall. Or there's another one that someone taught me recently that I really loved. Oh, like a hush fall over the crowd, hush, or something like that. So Jan, if you have any other methodologies that you use, feel free to put them over there. But when you're doing that engagement stuff, just making sure you have a way, as a facilitator, you want to make sure that you're holding the container, you're holding that space so people feel safe with you to go there. So you can do a lot of different question prompts, and the invitation, the idea of the stranger walk is you're really building like, okay, no one's making eye contact, they're not looking at each other, to they're like making eye contact, to they're high-fiving, to they're talking to each other. And then those questions, like Jan's question cards, can begin to get deeper and deeper and deeper. The thing about it is you don't want like, you know, everyone shows up to your workshop and you're like, turn to your neighbor, share your deepest, darkest secret, right? Like that there's a flow and a methodology. Sonia posted a awesome photo in the Transformational Facilitators group of like planning your workshop via emoji. And I thought that was hilarious, of like, how do you want people to feel when they walk in the room, when they're doing the stranger walk, when they're getting asked those questions that are hard or challenging? What are you doing to like engage people? And so creating that like emotional flow is really important, and just being mindful that the types of questions that you ask matter in like, how long has this group known each other? Maybe you're working with a group, you know, every week for years, and like they know each other and they can go deep. Maybe this group has never met each other. So I think the types of questions that you ask, just be mindful of what you want to do. And like Jan says, it's like you're really taking people on a journey of building that connection and building that community. So starting with that slow build, and that's what I love about just the idea of the stranger walk. I've done this with teams, I've done this with student leaders, I've done this with organizations, and people absolutely love it. A fun like up level to the stranger walk is to add, for each partner, you can have them do a different type of handshake, or a different high five, or create a dance move. And then that just adds a little bit more like silliness and lightness. Again, it depends on what your intention is with that. But that's like an added little bonus that I won't go too far into. But adding the handshakes or dance moves are super fun. So feel free. So that one is the power of a prompt. I gave you 4 really solid things to do as far as that goes. And I would love if anyone has any comments, reflections, thoughts, or questions before I move on to the next one. And I'm going to read what Nedra says. I know magic is happening when people are smiling and don't want to stop talking to each other. It's really cool to see the energy change over time, right? And that's like, that community building piece is creating workshops and experiences where people, I call it like the hum of human connection. It's almost like hard to get people to stop talking to each other, because people like are so hungry for that, right? And it's important to find the sweet spot of how much time do I give them, and how much time do I have for this experience, and really, again, being the guide and moving people along. And I'm like, it's okay that you're still talking. That's awesome. Like, but we're going to move on so you can, make connections or meet some other people. So the second pillar is what we're talking about today, which is facilitating a strong sense of community. So step one to do that is the power of a prompt. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Number two is engagement throughout. And this is something that I feel like I can't talk enough about. And maybe people that have heard me do this or have been on these master classes, they're like, I get it. But what do I mean by engagement? Engagement throughout the workshop. And this one is like, honestly, it sounds really simple, but I think so many events and conferences really miss the mark on this. This looks like turn to a neighbor, turn to a partner, pair share, get into groups of 3. I invite you to get into groups of 3 or get into groups of 4. Or if you're at a meeting that has like I've spoken at events where there's a round table, and I'll say like engagement and reflection throughout. So again, part of this depends on like, is your workshop 60 minutes? Is it 6 days? Is it 6 hours? Whatever it is, creating opportunities for engagement and reflection by having them turn to a partner, share, what have you learned so far? Or what is your, things like, what has been your biggest takeaway so far? And getting them to say that out loud. And doing activities and experiences and things like if you have a lot of content to deliver, just build that in, every 20 minutes or so, just like a way for people to connect the dots. And there's some super silly ways of doing this and easy ways. I just shared the easy ways. Turn to a neighbor, groups of 3, whatever. Some fun things that you can do for this is have people, if they get into groups of 3 or 4, they can make a skit together of what they have learned so far at the event. And anytime you're giving people an opportunity to do something that what I would call fun, comfortable, you just I think you can name something hey, this might be fun for some of you, this might be uncomfortable for others, but at the end of the day, it's fun, comfortable. And when we're when we're experiencing fun, comfortable things, that is when we learn and grow the most. So you're going to get into groups of 3, and via a 1-minute skit, you are going to share with the group what you learned today, right? And so that gets that group of people really connected to each other because they're talking, they're processing, they're connecting. So those are some fun engagement pieces there. Okay. I'm having a lot of ideas as I'm sharing this with all of you. Engagement and reflection throughout helps people connect. Boom. One, and then the other ones that I'm going to share are around both kind of I'm trying to name what this would be. I talk about vulnerability a lot, and one of my favorite words of all time is vulnerageous. How do you invite people to be vulnerageous? And there's a couple of my favorite ways that I do this. And the thing is, when people do something outside of their comfort zone in the same room as other people, it does build connection and it does build community. And one of my favorite ones is, a physical vulnerageous activity that I love to do is called the mirrored dance party. Okay. So the mirrored dance party is super fun. I did this a couple weeks ago with a group of 40 or so people, and it was 9 a.m. And what happens is I frame this as, this is usually at the end of my talk when I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments here. When I talk about, it's one thing to talk about stepping outside your comfort zone or following your heart or following your dreams. And it's another thing to actually do it. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, an experience to do something that might be a little bit vulnerageous and a little bit uncomfortable, because the thing is, going after the thing that you really want, that's going to happen. And so you're going to practice getting to do that with the support of this amazing community. So I model the way in that they can either go into the middle of the circle or stay in the circle where they are. And they just, for 10 seconds, not very long, get to show off their favorite dance move. And then everyone else mirrors that dance move. And so we just get to be reflected. We get to be, and sometimes the prompt is just that you, there is no one like you in the world. And so share a dance move that represents the most fully expressed version of you. And then people will mirror that. I'll start the song and then I'll model it. They'll do it. And then we just do we go around the circle. And people freaking, the most awkward and people that hate doing it love it in the end. And that's the thing about facilitation and doing these activities, is that you have to be willing to let people be fun, to have a fun, comfortable experience. Because that is going to create a memorable moment for them. So that's my physical vulnerageous activity. And then one of my favorite community and connection building things, I have two. One depends on how long you're with the group. I guess both of them a little bit, but I've done this with groups who didn't know each other well at all. And you can call it an appreciation circle, or again, it depends on how many people you have in the room, because I've done this with really, really big groups. Or a strength I see in you is. So this is an opportunity for people to really see each other for who they are and be seen. I think that so many people are walking around feeling unseen, unloved, unheard. And this is one of my favorite activities like I said, I've done that. A strength I see in you with a group of people who just met each other that day. And there's only one thing that person can say back, which is 2 words: thank you. So it looks like a strength I see in you, Kelly, is that your heart and your love for teaching kids design thinking inspires me. And so I would just share that, and Kelly would get to say, "You're unmuted." 2 words. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. And I've done this activity, and it does build, and especially doing a strength I see in you or some sort of appreciation circle especially with teams that have worked together for a long time. I think that this works for people who just met and teams that have worked together for a long time, because when people feel seen and loved and appreciated, they feel connected. They feel like they belong. And that is what we want more than anything in the world. And so if you can facilitate that moment for someone where they feel seen, I think that is the magic. That is the sweet spot. That is the sweet sauce. And so mirroring that back, creating those moments. The appreciation circle, if you have let's say 10 people or so, one person gets to be on the hot seat. You can have a timer, because this can go on for a very, very, very long time. This is an amazing exercise for the end of a retreat. Is someone gets to be on the hot seat, the birthday seat, and everyone just gets to tell them how awesome they are. And that person just gets to sit and receive and bask in the awesomeness and then sometimes I have someone taking notes so that they have that as a takeaway. Another thing, so I have one more around this, the vulnerageous activity section. I need to break these down a little bit better, but is life stories. Life stories is one of the most simple and potentially most powerful exercises to create connection, belonging, and community. So many people have never even had the opportunity to share their story with anyone else. And again, this depends on the group size, the context. I've done this a number of different ways. One, again, say you have a group of 10 people, everyone gets 5 minutes to share their life story. And then there's a 1 minute opportunity for the group to and no one gets to ask questions, but people get to reflect back at that for 1 minute, strengths that they heard or saw as they shared their story. So, and if you have like heaps and heaps of people, you can have like find a partner and invite them to sit knee to knee, and they each get however long you want, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes to share their life story. So hopefully, Kelly, this answers your question. So if I had a group that size, I would just have them partner up with one person and do a knee to knee, share their life story, or even get into groups of 3 or 4. And then each person would get like 3 minutes or so. So there's a couple different ways that can break down. Sometimes just giving people the prompt, like share your life story, is a lot and a little bit overwhelming. So 3 prompts that I love to give people: where have you been? Where are you now? And where are you going? So if you do a 3-minute life story thing, it's essentially like just 1 minute for where you've been, 1 minute for where you are, 1 minute for where you're going. If you have more time, give people more time. But it is amazing what people can share in that amount of time. And then that reflection piece is so powerful. Like, what I heard in your story was that you are strong and capable and da-da-da-da-da. And so there's a lot to some of these activities. And just so you know, I'm working on what I'm calling the facilitator's playbook so that I can have a lot of these written up. They're all kind of up in here. And I'm really trying to distill and distinguish this so that I can give this to you as a tool, as a resource. So just so you know, I am working on that for y'all. With that, I would love to do some Q&A. If people have any questions about anything that I named, anything that I talked about today, anything that I mentioned, and or any other challenges or like questions that I didn't answer for you today yet, that you have around building a strong sense of community specifically with your people. So feel free to raise your hand or put that in the chat box. Kelly, we have groups like that, and we usually just ask folks to give feedback. Oh, okay. Thanks, Ryan, for answering that. Emphasize that the convo is focused on what you give to the group, not what you get, because not everyone will get feedback, and it's more about contribution. Have you ever worked with groups of teenagers? Any advice for that particular population? Whew, I have worked with teenagers, mainly college students. And I would say that they need this more than any group, because I think that they could benefit from practicing the art of connection. And I think a big part is asking them, why does connection matter to you? Again, why is this important? Why are you here? I know that Kelly has done a lot of work with like middle school, high school folks. So maybe Marianne and Kelly, you two can stay connected. What is your role when you enter a group that already knows each other all right, but don't know you at all? What type of connection activities would you recommend? So are you talking about how to get them connected to you as a facilitator? So they know each other, but you don't know them super well. Okay. I think always, and this is like transformational facilitator hot tip, is like, what is your intention around the connection? Because like, is it important for you as the facilitator to get to know them or to connect with them, or knowing where the group's at in their level of connection, and like, where do you want to take them? Or how do you want to just continue to foster that and nurture that and develop that? Because even though they know each other, like even though a group knows each other, like I worked in an office with a team for 5 years, and there were things that we didn't know about each other. and that there's always opportunities and room for more and deeper connection. So I feel free to keep writing Q&A stuff in there. I am really freaking, and oh yeah, I love to ask this. This is always like my closing question for anything that I facilitate, which is, out of all of the things that we talked about and I shared with you today, I'm going to invite, what is your biggest takeaway from today? And what is the action that you might take? So you can put what is your biggest takeaway from today? For those of you who haven't heard this metaphor, this is like my favorite metaphor to end any event with, any workshop, is, there's a lot that I covered today, and it could feel almost overwhelming. How am I going to incorporate this or implement this? And there might be some things that landed for you or resonated with you or your audience more than others, and that's totally cool. The metaphor is the sailboat metaphor, y'all, the 1 degree shift, right? So the idea here is maybe you don't have to change everything that you're doing. And I'm sure that there are a lot of things that you're already doing really, really well. But the idea of the 1 degree shift is, if you're on a sailboat and if you change the course on your sailboat just 1 degree, over the course of hundreds of thousands of miles, you can end up in a completely different place. So the idea, or the invitation, this is just another way to say, what is your biggest takeaway? Like, what is your 1 degree shift going to be as a facilitator to incorporate this to create a stronger sense of community, connection, and belonging at your events? I would love either to hear raise hands, you can share in the group, or you can write in the chat box. And I know that some people got to head out. We are going to go right up until 1. I want to honor your time, but I love to hear your takeaways. I love that Marianne and Kelly are connecting. This is awesome. Yeah, any takeaways or 1 degree shifts that anyone would like to share with the group or in here in the chat box. And if you're on the phone, you can raise your hand and or unmute yourself and you can share, because even though you're on the phone, we still would love to hear from you. So Maggie says, I love the sprinkling of connection between sections. So key. Just keeping the energy flowing. Part of engagement and community building and connection is that keeping the energy up, keeping the energy high, because people can only take in so much information. Planning your facilitation with emojis. Sonia, up top. Shout out to Sonia about that. The different activities, people are hungry for connection, doing vulnerable activities that make people fun, comfortable. Love your energy. Thank you, Marianne. Boom. Woo woo. Sonia, your biggest takeaway is woot. Come on. What's your 1 degree shift? What you gonna do? I know you got stuff coming up. I'm just kidding. Giving you a hard time. That was for the emojis. Got you. Appreciated hearing about the activities and new decks of cards. New decks of cards. I'm all about all the cards in all of the land. So feel free to keep putting your 1 degree shifts in the chat box. I am going to talk about ways that we can stay connected and stay in conversation with each other. So one thing that I'm doing is offering 30-minute facilitation breakthrough calls with you, which means if you're like, I don't know how to, I'm really committed to you implementing, integrating all of this facilitation stuff into your live trainings and events and workshops. And I know that there are specific things that you probably need as facilitator or your audience needs that are specific. And I'd love to chat with you about that. Free 30-minute call. You can click on the link to sign up for one of those sessions. I love talking to facilitators about their jam. And then the next masterclass is on presence over perfection. And the link to sign up for the next masterclass is right there. The facilitation breakthrough call was the first one through session. And I have 6 spots left in the Transformational Facilitation Retreat that is on the Oregon coast in October. I can't believe there's 4 people already going. It's in October. It's going to be the best thing ever. We're going to eat like farm to table things. We're going to hang out on the beach. We're going to talk facilitation. And really, if you want to come hang out with a group of 10 badass transformational facilitators, increase up level your facilitation skills. My goal is that the playbook, the transformational facilitators playbook, will be done by then. So if you are interested in that, you can fill out an application. I want to make sure that this is a good fit for you. So Transformational Facilitation Retreat application. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Sign up for the retreat. It's gonna be amazing. Do you have links for the card decks you showed earlier? www.cardsforconnection.com. That is the link to that one. And then I know you know askdeepquestions.com. Great. Let's see what else people said. I think the example of the guy who set up the now we have to turn to our neighbor moment is going to stick with me as a strong example of how important our presence is during facilitation. Boom. Presence is powerful. Presence is the key. It is the foundation. It is the thing that we're going to be talking about on the next masterclass. I have one more thing. Man, I have so many things to share with y'all. Monica loves the mirror dance party. I love it. I would love, if you try any of these activities, I want to hear how it goes. And if you aren't a part of our transformational facilitation community on Facebook, you better be. I'm just kidding. It's a free community on Facebook where I share all sorts of goodness. I'm doing an interview next week with an amazing facilitator, Daniel Eisenman, who wrote a book called Breaking Normal. He's been leading retreats all over the world for 10 plus years. So I feel like I have so many links to send you, and I feel like a little bit bad about it. Not like too bad, because it's just, I want to help you be more awesome in the world. So I'm going to put just one more link for y'all in the chat. I'm going to start doing these transformational facilitator interview. And that one is happening next week, and that is a link to sign up. Oh my gosh, so many things. Does anyone have any questions about any of the links, any of the other things we talked about at all? I am going to, for those of you who are on the call right now, feel free to stick around. I am going to end the official call so that we keep these super tight and keep them to an hour. So thank you all so much for being here, for joining us this week, this month. We hope you join us for the next masterclass on the practicing presence over perfection. And sign up for a call with me. I want to talk to you because you're awesome and you're here. And thank you so much for being here. All right. Peace.